Imagine cruising through the streets of Los Angeles, palm trees swaying overhead, when you pull up to a gated estate where hip-hop royalty lives like West Coast royalty. Custom lowriders gleam in the sun. A private studio hums behind mansion walls. Cannabis grows not just as a hobby, but as a multi-million-dollar business. Welcome to the world of Snoop Dogg, rapper, entrepreneur, cultural icon, and one of the most unlikely billion-dollar brands in entertainment history. Today, we're stepping inside Snoop Dogg's extraordinary lifestyle, his mansions, his car collection, his business empire, and his fortune. But before the luxury, the fame, and the empire, we have to go back to where it all began, on the streets of Long Beach, California. Calvin Cortazar Broadus Jr. was born in 1971 in Long Beach, California, a place where gang culture, poverty, and survival shaped everyday life. Raised primarily by his mother, Snoop grew up singing in church and playing football, but the streets always pulled harder. By his teenage years, he was running with the Rollin' 20s Crips, frequently in trouble with the law. Jail stints became part of his reality. For many, that path ends one way. For Snoop, music became the exit. Using simple equipment, he began recording homemade tapes with his cousins Nate Dogg and Lil 12 Dead, calling themselves 213 after Long Beach's area code. Those rough recordings would soon change hip-hop forever. In the early 1990s, fate intervened. A mixtape made its way to Dr. Dre, who was searching for a fresh sound after leaving NWA. The moment Dre heard Snoop's laid-back flow, smooth voice, and effortless confidence, he knew he'd found something special. Snoop's breakout came in 1992 on Dre's legendary album, The Chronic. His voice dominated tracks like Nothing But a G Thing, instantly making him one of the most recognizable artists in the world. Just 1 year later, Snoop released Doggy Style, debuting at #1 on the Billboard charts, a first for a debut artist. The album sold over 800,000 copies in its first week and went quadruple platinum. At just 22 years old, Snoop Dogg was already a superstar. Controversy, courtrooms, and survival. But fame came fast, and trouble followed. In 1993, Snoop was charged with murder after a fatal shooting involving his bodyguard. The case dominated headlines and threatened to derail his career entirely. For 2 years, Snoop lived under the shadow of a possible life sentence. In 1996, he was acquitted, but the experience changed him forever. He left Death Row Records soon after, distancing himself from the violence and chaos that once defined his rise. Instead of burning out, Snoop adapted, something he would become legendary for. While many rappers faded, Snoop evolved. He transitioned from hardcore gangster rap into mainstream entertainment, collaborating with pop artists, reggae legends, and even country stars. He became Snoop Lion, explored reggae, starred in films, voiced animated characters, and transformed himself into a household name far beyond hip-hop. This ability to reinvent himself would later become the foundation of his business empire. Inside Snoop Dogg's real estate empire, Diamond Bar Mansion, California Dreaming. Snoop Dogg's primary residence sits in Diamond Bar, California, a 20,000 square foot Mediterranean-style mansion purchased for around $720,000 in the late 1990s and now worth several $1,000,000. Behind its gates lies everything you'd expect from West Coast royalty. A recording studio, a massive home theater, a basketball court, resort-style pool, custom art and memorabilia celebrating decades of hip-hop history. This isn't just a house, it's Snoop's creative headquarters. Snoop's love for cars is legendary. His collection blends classic West Coast culture with modern luxury. 1967 Pontiac Parisienne Lowrider, estimated $200,000 Rolls-Royce Phantom, $450,000 Cadillac DeVille convertible, $150,000 Tesla Model X. Because even OGs go electric, for Snoop, cars aren't just transportation. They're rolling pieces of culture. Long before marijuana legalization became mainstream, Snoop Dogg was its most famous ambassador. But unlike others, he turned culture into commerce. Launched in Colorado, this premium cannabis brand was one of the first celebrity-backed marijuana businesses. Casa Verde Capital, Snoop's venture capital firm, has invested in cannabis tech startups, delivery platforms, lifestyle brands. By 2025, his cannabis-related investments are estimated to generate hundreds of millions annually. Snoop once joked he smokes up to 150 joints a day, but behind the humor is a carefully built empire. Snoop Dogg's money doesn't stop with music or cannabis. Death Row Records, purchased by Snoop in 2022, bringing the legendary label full circle. NFTs and Web3. Early investor and vocal supporter, brand deals. Corona, Skechers, Martha Stewart, Pepsi Gaming, FaZe Clan board member, TV and film, hosting shows, voice acting, commercials. In 2024, Snoop became a surprise fan favorite commentator during the Olympics, proving once again that his personality transcends generations. Estimated net worth, 2025. $500 million to $1 billion annual income. $40 to $60 million, over 35 million albums sold worldwide. Hundreds of millions earned from endorsements, licensing, and investments. Snoop isn't just rich, he's diversified. Unlike many celebrities, Snoop's personal life is defined by stability. He married his high school sweetheart, Shante Broadus, in 1997. Despite brief separation, they reunited and remain together today. They have 4 children, several grandchildren, and Snoop proudly calls family his greatest achievement. Snoop founded the Snoop Youth Football League, which has helped thousands of inner-city kids stay off the streets and earn college scholarships. Several NFL players credit Snoop for changing their lives. For him, legacy isn't money, it's impact. Snoop Dogg is more than a rapper. He's a survivor, a brand, a cultural architect. From prison cells to boardrooms, from Long Beach streets to billion-dollar deals, Snoop Dogg mastered something few ever do, staying relevant without losing authenticity. And in a world that constantly changes, that might be his greatest achievement. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Snoop Dogg's luxury lifestyle and empire, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. More legendary stories, untold fortunes, and iconic reinventions are coming next.